Hey guys, and welcome to my Forged Soul guide and spreadsheet. In this guide, I will be explaining a spreadsheet that I've created that covers a lot of points that every other soul crafting spreadsheet pretty much leaves out. So when I researched Forged Soul profits and I found a few spreadsheets and guides, they all basically looked like this small corner up here. And a lot of people that see these so-called guides think, wow, if I get an S4 and make it to an S5, I can profit 20k flux and make so much flux just crafting. By the way, the values that I'm using right now are from before the marketplace, and I will be changing them up here in a second, but I do want to just showcase them for the start. But that's why I'm making this video. I strive to put out the best content with no lazy work and misconceptions, which is what makes this spreadsheet the absolute best you can find. So I'll start on the right side and work my way around the spreadsheet, explaining each graph, as this guide can be extremely confusing to someone who looks at other spreadsheets out there and comes to this one. So starting out, we have the price chart, which already puts this spreadsheet over any other one out there, as no one allows you to touch the values, making them outdated pretty much instantly as they post them. This guide is 100% public for viewing and 100% downloadable, so you can change the values to your own as the market changes pretty much every second in the day. To download the spreadsheet, though, all you have to do is go up to File and make sure you're logged into a Google account, and you can click Make a Copy, and that is how you can download this to your own Google Drive and change the values yourself. So let's change the values from the old prices to the new ones, how they are on the market right now. And so the flux for eyes pretty much is around 20 right now. Twice are around 800 flux. Thrice are around 5k, quads around 15k, and pentas around 45k. So you can see already the entire spreadsheet changes with the values in here to reflect what I changed, and you can see the values pretty much crashed because the new values from the market are kind of wonky and dumb. So as you can see, I have every equation is linked to this price chart, so make sure you change this to the actual values as you see them the day that you use this spreadsheet. But moving on to the vendor chart, this is pretty much everything you get when you deconstruct a piece of gear with 0 stars on it. So the total flux lists the flux you get from deconstructing plus the eyes times the price of the eyes in the price list, plus the price of the twice listed in the price list, and in total it makes the total flux that you get in flux value. I will get a little bit more in detail later when I talk about the equations I use to get all of my values off on these charts over here. We'll skip the green color text graphs for now, as they are linked together for the end. But moving on back to the upper left, we have the base chart, which is pretty much what the only information that other guides will give you. You have the total flux needed right here, plus the eye is needed times the price that they are in the price chart for the total price in flux that you're going to need to upgrade from the level on the left to the level on the right. And then the total profit is the total flux you get for vendoring an item. So this is including, again, no other guide does this. This is including the flux plus the eyes times the eye price plus the soul price to make the total price, which for a like a S2, if you deconstruct an S2, you get 1040 flux right now with everything combined. And then the total profit is that value minus the total price to craft, which, by the way, those other guys would just give you the soul you get in the end and ignore the flux needed to upgrade. It'll just tell you, you're going to profit 800 flux. You're going to profit 5,000 flux if you make an S2 to an S3. That's basically them from what I have seen. But in the end, the deconstructing values might not seem like much now, but you will see how big something this small can impact your profits later on. Now, the reason this table alone, though, is a lie is because a lot of people think they can craft an S4 and then turn that S4 into an S5 and make 22k or however much, like 10k as it is right now, turning it into an S5. But this is completely wrong, as the shadow level on the left is the level that you have to find the item on the floor. You cannot just craft up to an S4 and then make 10k going to an S5, because that is completely ignoring the entire process, going from whatever you found to the S4 and then going from the S4 to the S5, which eats away pretty much all of your profit. Again, you have to find the shadow level on the left from the chart for the first table to be true. So if you find an S4 on the ground, yes, going to an S5 will make you 10k, but you have to find the S4 on the ground, which these charts down here will kind of explain why most people will not find an S4. So let's move on to the first real chart. This is listed under U5 because in U5, if you have 0 magic find on your gear, there's a cap to prevent you from finding something over S2 in U5. So if you are a U5 player, then this is the real chart for you. As you can see, going from an S2 to an S4 is an extreme amount different than the values listed above. But once again, this list actually factors the cost from going both an S2 to an S3 and then S3 to an S4 automatically in the total profits section. You have to do zero math with this graph. Same applies from going S2 to S5. The equation is the price it costs. So we can go right here. The price it costs to go from S2 to S3, and then S3 to S4, and then finally S4 to S5, and add it all up and then subtract it from the entire value you get from deconstructing an S5 for the 1 penta, the 2k flex, and then the 7 eyes times the eye price up there. But now we have the U6 chart. It is pretty much the same concept as the U5, however in U6, with 0 magic find, your cap is S3 drops instead of S2. So the only value you have to worry about is going from S3 to an S5, because you can already see the S3 to S4 up here. That'll give you 1.9k profit, but then if you go from S3 to S5, you lose 4k in the entire process. But now comes the crafting chart. This is going to be a big one, so bear with me. Using this chart, you cannot buy anything. This chart is for deconstructing for your souls only. So for the example, I will show you going from S2 to S5. So starting out, you have the flex needed, which is the value from going from S2 to S3 times 9, because you need to upgrade an S2 item that you find into an S3 9 times, plus the cost from going S3 to S4 times 3, as you need to upgrade an S3 item to an S4 item 3 times, plus the cost of going from S4 to S5, as that is the final step in crafting your penta. The same equation is used for the eyes, and finally the total flex needed is the total eyes needed times the value of the eyes listed in the price chart. This doesn't include any prices of souls, as once again you will buy 0 souls using this chart, and they are all pretty much free. Now we have the total profit, which is the most complicated part of the entire spreadsheet. So if you look to the right, there is the gear needed per craft chart. This lists how many items you need to deconstruct to get enough souls for the required S level you are upgrading to. So for S5, you need to find 18 S2s to make a penta, or you can find 6 S3s if you are doing U6. However, if you are starting at S2, S2s, the total items to make an S5 are 18 S2s, in which you will craft 6 S3s with to deconstruct for the souls needed to make 2 S4s that you need to deconstruct to make the final S5. So while this list only tells you how many items you need to deconstruct, just know you'll need 1 more to make the final S5 with all these souls you just crafted. For example, if you start with S2, you're going to need 19 total S2s, but still are only making 6 S3s and 2 S4s. However, if you start from S3, you're going to need 7 S3s to make the 2 S4s, and then the final S5, because you need that final item to use all the souls to upgrade to get your penta. So to get the total profit, we have the flux right here, plus the eyes times the eye price in the eye chart to get the, or times 18, because you need to deconstruct 18 S2s, so you'll do, you're gonna deconstruct an S2 18 times, which means you'll get 18 times the flux and 18 times the eyes, plus the, or times the eye price, because that's what's gonna equal the flux. Then the same equation goes for the S3, this time is times 6 as you deconstruct 6 S3s, and finally the total flux you get from deconstructing 2 S4s, without including the quad soul prices or the thrice soul prices, as they are free in this equation. because you are deconstructing for them. And all of that plus the total flux you get from deconstructing an S5, so this value right here, which is the 2k plus the 7 times the 20 for the eyes plus the penta price, and you get all of that, and then you subtract it by the huge value right here. That's the total cost listed to the left of the total price, and then you get your total profit, which is if you make an S2 to an S5 doing crafting only, you're gonna spend 40,000 flux in total, which is including the flux plus eye prices, and then the 47k plus the 100 times 18, 7 times 20 times 18, and then the same 6, and then 2. All of that equals 15k flux you get from crafting an S2 to an S5 deconstructing only. Alright, so as you can tell, I pretty much made this spreadsheet 100% accurate with every little detail and not take the lazy approach. I might have explained it a little bad, like I'm doing this live and I might just be slurring over my words and cutting in and out because I have to go over a spreadsheet that I have already made. But at least I didn't just do the top left spreadsheet and then call it a guide. I also listed the entire process that the crafting only method takes in the second sheet on the bottom tabs right here for both the U5 players and the U6. As you can see, going from S2 to S5 takes a lot of steps, and if you're going to be doing the crafting method only, and remember, this is only for one penta, so in total you will need 162 S2 drops to cover just the pentas needed to make full radiant. This doesn't include the 6 quads, 6 thrices, and 6 twices you're going to need going from an S1 to a radiant, or anything else. However, as you saw on the first spreadsheet, this is the only way you can profit with soul crafting right now. And remember, when the prices change, you can always edit the values up here, and the entire guide will adjust accordingly to, say, the eyes. Let's make the eyes 30. You can see, rise up, press enter. You can see how dramatic just adding that 10 flux per eye can affect the entire crafting process. So always keep that in mind. Whenever the prices change, this entire guide is going to change. That's why I made it to where you can change the values. I'm not just posting a video and saying these are the values, because that will be outdated by the next minute and then there will be no point in the video. But that's going to be it for this guide. I know this was a video on a spreadsheet. However, as you can tell, if you don't know much about math, or even if you just look at this guide and think, hey, I would have never thought about including that small amount of flux and eyes you get with the souls that you deconstruct, then this guide is pretty complicated for the average user, and I felt this video was the best way to explain it, to be honest. The spreadsheet alone took me 2 hours to make with all the values and equations put into it, so if it helps you, make sure to give the video a like, as it lets me know that all my hard work has kind of paid off. You can also find a link to the spreadsheet in the description below, but besides that, hope you guys enjoyed the video.